For the last 32, 33 years, I've actually told people, and it's always been something as an outsider, we have the privilege of seeing things from the bleachers, so to speak. And that is what we say matters. And it's amazing when you have niceties in a corporate boardroom or a conference room where we have a meeting and someone says something and the person goes, "Does that make sense?" And the other person goes, "Oh, yeah." The person who said, "Oh, yeah, it makes sense," walks out of the room, walks down the hall with a teammate. I'll never forget, I did this at a client site, walked behind two people. They didn't know I was behind them and said, "Can you believe it? That guy, I can't believe that guy said that. What a jerk." You just told him it was okay what he said. But what it shows us is that what we say matters. It has an impact. That person or those two people didn't feel the right or didn't feel a comfort. Something prohibited them from saying, "Well, wait a minute, that didn't sit right with me." And so often when I work with companies, we get the cliche, we just got to work on our communication. Can you imagine if we worked on our communication, how many hundreds, if not thousands, of topics we could address? It's a big topic. Let me give you a couple terms that I think really matter, and it helps us with what we say matters. Language is important, number one. I'm going to give you 6 words: we, share, opportunity, perspective, observation, and the word and. John, I think we have an opportunity to work together. I'd love your permission to share some perspectives, and I'd love to hear from you in terms of your perspectives. That's much different than if I say, "John, I'm really getting frustrated. You're kind of coming off like a jackass. I'm really upset with you." So when we lead with emotion, we drive emotion back like a boomerang. So language, the words we use matter. We're in it together. Share, it's friendly. Opportunity is the whiff. What's in it for them? I don't use the words constructive feedback. Perspective and observation are neutral. They're different than "I'm angry." The word "and" is inclusive versus the word "but." Leave your buts at home. Words matter. Number 2, how we approach and really stay in the moment conversationally. And I'm going to give you an example. Have you ever had that person where you go out to lunch and they kind of peek at, uh-huh, and it upsets you, right? It gets you upset, especially when they just got done talking and you listened and they don't listen. We don't listen very well, do we? How often are you thinking about saying something? I'm guilty of this as much as anyone while someone's talking. And what we're doing is we're undermining the relationship through bad communication. Now, I'm going to throw out a third: factual representation. Do we factually deliver information and do we factually listen? So if I go to a client site and somebody says to me, "Tim, I'm upset with you," and I go and tell 3 people, "He got me in a headlock and he threw me out the window," that's literally what happens in the workplace. Things get taken out of context. I'm going to give you one here in a second. And then when we hear things we don't like, we start to react. And we teach something called RIAR, RIAR. It's a part of our emotional interpretation course. I react. I'm feeling a certain way. I interpret they attacked me. Then I articulate. I tell 3 other people because now I feel better about it. It's not me. And I've changed the narrative a little bit. The last R, the second R, is reflection. We rarely get to reflection. The key is to flip and start with reflection. Before we react, before we judge, before we label, before we narrate, before we tell 12 other people, we reflect and say, "Why did that person give me that feedback?" So hypothetically, if you were to say to me, "Tim, that green shirt looks awful," the typical reaction is, "Wow, why would you say that? This is a nice shirt." I know it's a dumb example, but then I interpret, that was just really rude. And then I go to 3 people and say, "Did you hear what Lisa said about my shirt?" Now, what if I clarified and she said, "Actually, it's a great shirt. It just doesn't show up as well as a darker shirt with your black or with your white wall in the background." That's much different, isn't it? But I immediately judged and I labeled and I ran down the road. I can't even take a U-turn because I've already told 3 people, by the way, who are going to tell 4 people about Lisa, how much of a jerk she was to Tim. And they're going to put their own interpretation on it. And this is what happens. So communication has to start with each and every one of us in the moment. We talk about it, we talk about it, and we talk about it. And that's active listening. Active listening, the true definition, is the ability to paraphrase back to somebody what they said. It's not just being attentive, it's not putting distractions away. That's attentive listening. Active listening is having that ability. I challenge each and every one of you. Take the time to paraphrase back to somebody. It's amazing how often. It's typically about 50% people say, no, 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 that's not what I meant. Which we're allowing them latitude to re-communicate. But if someone communicates and we react to it and we don't allow them time for clarification, we've also undermined our teammate. It could be an employee, it could be a peer, it could be someone above us, without ever giving them a chance. So a lot of times, and we've done this in sales training, for 40, 50 years. When was the last time a salesperson paraphrased back to you your specific buying needs or buying drivers? It's rare, but we've been training on it for 40, 50 years. Why doesn't it happen? Because we're creatures of habit. We need to give a little bit of latitude. Let me give you one more example of why active listening is been overtaught, but it just needs to be practiced. It's not rocket science. If I'm a sales rep and I come to you and I paraphrase back to you or I don't paraphrase back to you, there are two different reactions. So if you say, yeah, Tim, I want to sign up 50 people for your course. And I look down at my notes and for whatever reason, I write 500 or I think I see 500 and I say, all right, I'm going to get you an invoice for 500 people. And I never demonstrated attentive listening. What would your reaction be? It might be, geez, the guy's not listening to me? Or is he trying to oversell me? Did he just try to get one by me? Versus me saying, so Lisa, you said 50 people or 500 people for the course? And Lisa goes, well, 50 people. Okay, I just want to make sure because I was looking down at my notes. I wanted to make sure I understood your needs. Now I've been given a little bit more latitude. We need to not only actively listen, but give each other listening latitude. What we say matters.